So it's interesting that after everything that we were planning on talking about,
Mm-hmm.
the conversation that we've already had, the title of this podcast is essentially what is Renaissance Z, and we know that answer.
We do.
We've known what Renaissance Z is for 2.5 years, but we've always intentionally kept it under the rug.
Yeah.
I guess to protect it. Also,
Yeah.
it wasn't always called Renaissance Z,
No.
but what I was thinking is, we kind of give a high level macro overview
Mm-hmm.
of it, and then we travel back to the past
Yeah.
to tell the story.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of life lessons
True.
in
And I think
the journey.
I think also like it's a good thing. I think we always were interested or possibly thinking about wanting to just expose it right off the bat because we were excited and we were confident, and it was just a really exciting time, like just getting to know what your future is going to consist of.
Yeah.
But looking back at it, it's really good that we just really just stayed silent and just learned for a period of time.
Right.
Because now getting to see it all play out in real time, it is super special to finally start seeing the fruits of your labor and just see people from the outside actually care. Like, what is this? We had our first event a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. That was incredible.
Yeah.
So I think that finally sparked the idea that, okay, it's time to actually explain ourselves and explain everything about what's going on.
I agree, and I think because we've learned so much from the culture that we've built and the team that we've built, checking one another, because I didn't want to have anyone rocking with us at the beginning because I didn't trust people.
I didn't know if you were going to mention that now.
I was paranoid.
Yes.
I didn't like people,
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, me and you could just do everything.
Yeah.
And that's what I learned from you.
Mm-hmm.
We learned a lot from one another, and we'll be able to expose that throughout this conversation.
Yeah.
But it all starts with because the reason I bring that up now, we have a team of 30, 40 people right now.
Led by the original kids that, we brought into Bessemer, Pennsylvania.
Right.
and
and at the beginning, I didn't want a third person.
No.
You know what I mean? And that was a horrible mindset, but we'll talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if you want to start off giving a high-level overview of what Renaissance Z is, and then I'll add my 2 cents in. We'll go from there, and then we could just travel back to the past.
Yeah, I think in order for me to explain it, I have to explain my mindset a little bit, or our mindset when we were coming up with the concept. And I think it all was sparked by the idea that we wanted to be at the foundation of innovation. Something about that whole concept, just like maybe it was watching movies like The Social Network, being introduced to people like Mark Andreessen, Ben Horowitz, Chamath Palihapitiya. It was just something that spoke to our souls in a weird way, right?
Yeah.
It was unexplainable almost, and we couldn't understand or fathom what it really was going to mean, and we're still just figuring out what it means as time goes on. But, Renaissance Z was formed. The name was formed a year and a half ago. We had already formed a blueprint around that name a year before that. 2.5 years, 3 years that we've been doing this, and now starting to see it. So what Renaissance Z means, and then you're always the one to really explain the overview better. But Renaissance Z is a play on words. Renaissance Z, we're Generation Z.
Mm-hmm.
This is our generation. We're the generation of technology, of
Digital
innovation.
transformation.
We've literally grew up with an iPhone in our hands. This is a completely different world. Socioeconomics has shifted. Human interaction has completely shifted because of that innovation. And basically the concept of bringing Renaissance or conservative principles, not to get political, but more so virtues and morals that have built human society.
Yeah, to where we're at
mixed
today.
with the technological innovation and combining the two concepts.
Right. So I think the one sentence that we made to kind of describe it, it's taking the principles from the past without letting them essentially die off.
Of course.
Preserving those principles that have built society and brought order to the chaos, while also getting into the mix of all of the newest skill sets and technology that is going to transform our society, mankind, human civilization. And because we have thought about it for a while and we've studied it for a long time, like you have the Industrial Revolution, you know, and if you go back even before that, I mean, it was normal. The normal ideology of life was let's conquer and take over cities and villages, and people were walking around naked and people were raping people. There weren't laws. So society, mankind has made such progression to take it for granted is almost childish and selfish. Like, we're sitting in a room right now with so much technology, lights, the building, water in the building, lights in the building, cars we're going to drive on the road to get to where we need to go, cell phones to communicate, right? The amount of people that were falling off of skyscrapers to build them, right? The amount of people that were dying due to starvation or hunger or overexerting their body when building the roads hundreds and hundreds of years ago. The people that sacrificed their life to make discoveries and inventions of cars and electricity and this, that, and the third, right? Like, we take that all for granted.
And to go off your point, from a moral perspective, we're not worried about someone coming in here and putting a spear through our head as well.
Exactly.
So, like, these human concepts and technological concepts merging, this is the reality that we exist in.
Right.
Like, for as much as people in our generation want to complain, and trust me, we see the negative sides of these things, and that's why we feel as if it's so important.
It's important to,
because this technological innovation can destroy us. And we may dive into that, but you know what I mean, that it'll be talked about as the years go on by us. But, you know, with this innovation comes, to use your quote, a lot of vulnerabilities. A ton of vulnerabilities. Not just vulnerabilities with economics, but vulnerabilities like someone may try and create a device that can control my thought process. Like, these are real things. But, you know, it combines.
Right.
It combines.
And you learn that in computer science and cybersecurity. When there's new innovation, it always comes with vulnerability. Right? And you can't expect any less, because to innovate, you have to take risks. There's going to be bugs included in that risk, right? Anytime a new iPhone is developed and pushed out, what's the first thing they do? After a week, there's a lot of bugs, and you got to instantly start updating the phone on the new phone, because it took risk to build that. They tried new things, but you need to do that. And then once you understand that it comes with bugs, it's like, okay, now how do we fix? But I wanted to kind of like give that macro overview real quick. Our, like, Renaissance Z's final destination, I guess you would say, the main one, is to guide the digital transformation, or you could say the digital renaissance, that our generation is approaching. Now, do we know whether that's going to be crypto or artificial intelligence or quantum computing
or all three?
or all three? You know, we don't know. We don't know, okay? So it could be a lot of things, but what we do know is that a digital transformation is coming that is going to have a macro effect on human civilization.
No question.
You know what I mean? And
as it already is, and we're living in it.
And when these innovations come, the people that are in control of the assets and the money flows from the highest level of life, I'm talking trillions and billions, of where the money flows and the assets go to, which inventions that money goes to, which are going to have a mass effect on billions and billions of people. The people who have control of all of that, our survival of society is dependent upon those individuals' virtues and values and principles.
Yes. And now that's something that we obviously, and that comes with things that blockchain is introduced to the world with, like decentralizing governance. But basically, that idea is really scary, that a group of individuals could potentially be the ones. But again, like you talked about, in times of BC times, this is always how it's been. Totalitarian regimes. Emperors, leaders of giant empires as one individual. So even though there's not one definitive individual, it's a small group of individuals, and they hold a lot of power in their hands.
And it's not like people think like, oh, there's some secret. Like, and I'm not saying there isn't. No. I'm just not too conspiratorial of a person, but like the individuals who have control over the major assets, you know, whether that be a group of 100, 150, 300 men.
Yes.
These people are all intertwined with a lot of power, a lot of massive multi-billion, trillion-dollar companies.
Yes.
And they are the ones who get to choose, okay, we could allocate this much money for this. We could put this much money here. This invention is what we should put through, or this is what we should fight for, you know, for like, I guess you'd say the regulatory system to push against. Like, for example, Henry Ford. They stopped him from pushing the car out legally to society for years.
Yes.
He fought. You know, and
he won.
And he ended up winning eventually, right? But it was at the right time. So we do need that regulatory body to protect innovation, but we also need to take risks and allow them to push forward as well.
And to go into like the purpose of this podcast, the purpose of Renaissance Z at Scale, conversations are needed to be had in society, and there needs to be individuals that have built their own institutions built on transparency.
Right.
People that are willing to have the conversations and discuss the paradigm of society, right? And also be able to back that paradigm with their capital and be able to push these virtues forward, making sure that these giant institutions and large CEOs, they're being checked.
Right.
And also the next generation of CEOs understand that it can't continue to be like this forever, because with the amount of power that's being formulated in places like Silicon Valley, in places like China, there needs to be a check. There needs to be a reformation of some sort, or we're going to have individuals at the very top that basically have the capabilities to wipe countries out completely. And it's arguable that that's already a reality.
Yeah.
So things like, you know, two kids from Western Pennsylvania with a dream to be a part of innovation, we found a lot of importance beyond just becoming influential to get in on or get in at the beginning stages of innovation and try to bring a Judeo-Christian Stoic approach to economics, because it seems like we're getting farther and farther away from that concept. And remember, during the Renaissance period,
well, let's talk about that, because I don't think like people hear the word Renaissance.
Yes.
So you have the Medici family.
Yes.
They're the first real, I guess what you'd say is bankers, right? They're the first. They're the first like legitimate bank, and they're a family who runs that bank.
Yes, sir.
The funny thing is, back then it was almost like a venture capital firm.
Very much.
So you have in that time, in the Renaissance, that's when you have education starts to rise. All the arts start to rise. Philosophy starts to rise. Science starts to rise.
Religion
starts to rise.
The Catholic Church really started to become a real influence.
Right,
in
Rome. So the Medici family, they were visionaries.
Yes.
So if people had an idea, or if they thought that they could do something to push society forward, then they would finance those opportunities, or they would invest into those opportunities. So someone brought them a piece of work of, you know, we're going to put this art together, or we're going to design this building, or we're going to discover, you know, what planets are out there, etc. We're going to write a book. They would make that possible through the banking system.
Yes.
Right.
And it really does seem like this. Again, we can't go and speak to them, but it really seems like they put the society of that time at the forefront of these artists, of these aristocrats, of these religious leaders. They wanted, because what the Dark Ages was comparable to the Renaissance was the readily available information and creativity to the everyday person, which was once not available to them.
Right.
This is why it was the Dark Ages, because individuals weren't capable of sharing their ideas or reading books. I know it's like really insane to think about, because now we're at the radical opposition of that, where literally an 8-year-old kid could read a blog from Mark Andreessen. He might not be able to read it just yet, but he could go find it. Yeah. Right. So like this is the beginning stages of where we're at today, and that's why it really is a digital renaissance.
Yeah, the Renaissance, like that was the first radical renaissance of where we're at today. Yes. And to put it in perspective, you know, like they would take books and art and burn it.
Oh yeah.
back then because they thought it was a danger to society. But then you had the people like it was violent.
Yeah.
It was violent.
Yeah.
Like it was this guy's making art. Let's go murder him. Because and that's
It's not funny.
and
either
and
at
that
all.
was regular life.
Yeah.
You know, so it's important to know that people sacrifice their lives for us to have everything we
double
have
down
right now.
on that point again because
You know?
you mentioned it before, but like this is
Like
one of
art
the
was
main,
fought for.
Yes, this is one of the main forefronts of what Renaissance Z is, not taking what you're about to say for granted. Where we're at today.
Right. And I mean, the only people that used to be allowed to read books were kings and princes
Yes.
and emperors.
Yes.
The average citizen was not allowed to read a book because it was considered the most sacred, I guess you would say, compare it to currency.
It was brain power.
It was
mental currency.
It was worth more than gold, than material fortune, right? And so they took these things, art, books, science, and the people in power didn't want it to happen, but then there were people who fought, you know, and so that was what the Renaissance really represented. That's why we have the beautiful art that we have now, and the science and the discoveries and the philosophy and the architecture, you know, like it all stemmed from that. So that's why we call it Renaissance Z, you know, and you take that ideology, put it into the digital transformation that's occurring. It's like there has to be order to the chaos that's happening right now, because if you just have everyone out here throwing invention after invention after invention, we're going to get into dangerous times, especially if we take it too far, too fast.
Yes.
And there are no repercussions to doing such things, but while keeping the balance of, yes, innovation is super necessary as well.
While doing all of this with a lack of perspective on how important. Now let's go full circle with this. I believe that books, information are more valuable than gold. I think
True.
that was a correct ideology. That was a correct perspective. But now, because of the readily availability of it, it is not consider that anymore, or at least it's not completely understood how important the massive amount of information that we have is to us,
Right.
because it's just everywhere. So I think getting back to the forefront of society, of sociology, of this entire history of humanity, we need to remember that we're living in such a special time.
Right.
And we need to kind of reorganize all of these things.
And we can't let it reverse.
No.
You know, it's like
Because it will reverse.
we need it to go like this. It's very possible that it goes like this. If we go 500 years back, it's very possible that it goes like this.
Mm-hmm.
Right back down. Like a skate ramp.
Well, the scary thing is, like, I hear archaeologists talk about this all the time. You'll hear some guy in Joe Rogan come in, and they talk about BC times, and they talk about the Egyptian Empire. They talk about one of the Caribbean tribes had massive Amazonian empires, and we don't really understand the size of these kingdoms, the size of these moments in time. So the truth is, we may have already in human history seen massive heights that we don't even have captured in history, all the way to what we're talking about now, which was the Dark Ages. And then we saw it rise into the Renaissance, which has now led us to this.
Right.
So this may already have happened multiple times in human history.
That we just don't have record
I don't know
of.
how special the Egyptians were. We weren't there, and we don't have really any, other than archaeological finds and the pyramids that still stand today.
Right.
We don't know how advanced they really were. So for
Right.
people to think that it's not humanly possible, or it's not physically possible for us to see dark times again from a technological perspective, it's just not historically accurate at all. So having these type of conversations, because again, conversations are the beginning of change. They're the beginning of revolution. Revolution is a little bit bold, but it is a revolution. It's getting back to the forefront
Slowly.
of what makes us
Right.
us.
Yeah, so I think now we could
Yes.
work our way
That was
back.
a good overview.
Yeah, because we're going to be able to explain it more.
Mm-hmm.
We could work our way back.
Yes.
And I think there's a lesson in that,
Mm-hmm.
because it's parallel to what we personally had to do, because we had such a massive vision. We were 18, 19 years old, running around saying we were going to start a multi-billion-dollar venture capital firm.
Yeah.
And because, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what the vision is, to do what we were just talking about.
Which I believe we're still on the path of doing. You know, obviously, there's just a series of events, to use a phrase that you always use. And I think once that came to the forefront of our minds, we knew that we had to do it in a different way. But that is what sparked us originally.
Right.
We want to be at the beginning stages of innovation.
And right
How
before
do
we go
do
back,
that?
right before we go backwards, let's just say it. That was always our goal. Everything we just talked about, what people are probably asking right now, well, that's cool and all. You throw a whole bunch of fancy words around, but how do you do it?
Yes.
Right. To be the ones that can control those assets and those money flows by investing large amounts of capital into the new products and services that are going to innovate us into that digital transformation.
And
that's what a venture capital firm
and the
is.
Michelangelo-esque, Leonardo da Vinci-esque individuals that are at the forefront of these technologies, because that's really what the Medici family did. They invested into the individuals, which then created the multi-billion-dollar enterprises behind them.
Yeah.
Because Leonardo da Vinci was a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. Michelangelo was a multi-billion-dollar enterprise.
Yeah.
And they backed the individuals. And we'll dive into the ideology, the economic ideology of what we want our VC firm either today or another time. But, you know, we wanted the first thing that sparked our head, just to give an overview before we dive right back into it. The main thing that sparked our minds where we wanted to be at the foundation of innovation. Then we learned of the individuals in today's day and age that are, and they're called venture capitalists.
Right.
So that's the beginning of our journey. It started at that kind of revelation,
and
boom.
And we failed miserably.
Uh-oh.
But I mean,
yeah, I don't know. We're hard. Yeah, we're hard
to society. In society's terms, we failed.
I get.
To us,
that's
not how we view failure. But I don't want to like get. We'll end up getting too deep into everything.
For sure.
So that's why I just say,
was it even a game in the first place? To make a joke, like, were we actually even like participating? No. So was it even a failure? No. But did we believe in it so much? Did we have a delusional?
Well, what we realized, it's not that we failed.
Yes.
But we became something called hyper-realistic.
Of course.
It's something that Ray Dalio talks about a lot, being hyper-realistic. So it's not compromising on your goal, not getting rid of it, but to realize what it's actually going to take.
Yes.
And be serious about it.
Double down on it. Double down on it.
Double down,
I
triple down.
absolutely love that. So the concept of being a hyper-realist is never swaying from the vision itself, but understanding that in order to attain or manifest that goal or that vision,
you have to put the fucking work in.
You also have to figure out what it's actually going to take in the real life, not in Middle Earth, not in Marvel
not
universe,
in your mind,
not in the mind.
What it's going to take in real life
on Earth in 2022 to be able to attain that goal.
Right,
and that's being
and
a
that's
hyper-realist.
And that's why we didn't fail, but we realized, okay,
this is impossible.
Venture capital. Well, let's reverse engineer that. What are all the steps we're going to have to take to get there? And so we did, right? And then we started acting on those things, right? So we could take it all the way back to when we were 18, 19 years old. You pitched me the vision. We were in a little house, your grandpa's house, in Newcastle.
Rest in peace, Pop, man.
Yeah, rest in peace to Pop. I mean, he let us use his living room for about a year and a half while we sat there, vulnerably ripping on Adderall for, you know, for like.
Dude, listen, man, I'm okay with being honest on a podcast.
It is what it is. I mean,
it is what it is.
Yeah, this is our journey. So you know,
I'm sorry, Mom. My mom's gonna watch this, bro. I'm sorry.
I'm
sweating.
I mean, probably 19.
We started at 19. Yep.
So 19 years old. Nick brought me to you.
Nick Patton, our best friend.
When I got back
in Pittsburgh.
When I got back from the military the first time, I told that story on Tristan's podcast. Well, that's a long story. We won't talk about it.
Okay.
I came back from the military.
Yeah.
And Nick introduced me to you. We already knew each other, but then you pitched me the vision of the venture capital firm.
Yeah, we hung out probably for like 4 or 5 months casually.
Right,
I was starting to figure out what it is.
But it was the first day you told me the vision, though.
it was one of the first. I think we had hung out, like played maybe video games, did some stupid younger stuff, right? Back in the day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
it took like some consistency, because I don't think you would have even really internalized anything that I was saying to you unless I had brought your guard down.
Right.
And we won't dive, because you've already talked about this.
I didn't trust anyone.
With a podcast. You started a podcast a couple months ago, and you talked about it completely. But yeah, it took some time for us to soften up to each other, right? And then again, I didn't understand what the vision was right then, because we created the actual vision itself together.
Yeah.
But this entrepreneurial macro vision came to me when I was 19 years old, and I pitched that to you because I realized, okay, this is a macro concept, and I can't do it alone.
Yeah.
So let me just pitch it to Joey, because I already kind of saw at that point that we had the capabilities
to work together,
to be partners forever.
Yeah,
there was a certain
to be best
yin
friends,
and yang
brothers,
element to it. We were opposites, but we had similarities.
You were an array of joy, and and I was a life of darkness in a sense.
So, as some anime fans would say, Sasuke,
Naruto,
Sasuke and Naruto. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So like, but that is what it was. At first, I didn't trust anyone. I had just been through a lot of stuff previously before I met you, and you pitched me the vision. But yeah, you were full of joy. I was full of darkness. But what that didn't interrupt was that we were both on the same mission of life, and we instantly realized that. Like, I knew what you wanted out of life. I knew what I wanted out of life. You knew what you wanted out of life. You knew what I wanted out of life.
Yeah.
So from the second that we started talking about everything, we never didn't see each other for more than a day ever again.
Yeah, 3.5, almost 4 years later. Yes, sir.
Literally, because we started working on it every day. We didn't even know what it was.
No.
We just sat down at Pops. We sat down at Pops with our laptop. And we planned everything out. We wrote down, we took 2 years to build a 200-page plan that's split into like 3 different plans now.
A couple business plan, rough drafts, just to be able to like actually see what that was and see what it's like to actually
operational
create a
plans, finance plans, marketing plans, technological plans, and then that got broken down into different businesses, that got broken down into vision plans, purpose plans, personal life plans, team plans, and it's all still existing because
it's on a Google Drive somewhere. Come on.
And so that's what we spent. Like, people always ask, how do you do what you do now? But what they don't realize is we planted so many seeds that it's not like the amount of seeds we planted is unfathomable because that became our lifestyle. Our lifestyle became planting seeds together.
Yes.
And now we're watching that fruit come to
sprout.
To bear, and we're only going to keep planting. But so fast forward, right? This was the pivotal moment. And this is what I talked about at the beginning. You knew that we needed a team.
That was a vision statement of mine personally. This was not a mutual thing because I had known you so well at this point that I knew that I would also have to pitch the team aspect with you, as well as I had to kind of pitch the whole entire entrepreneurial journey. So I knew, like, I prepared. I remember having to like actually prep for like 4 to 5 days to pitch you the significance of bringing on just other individuals. I had no idea, bro, like who was going to come, who for one wasn't in college because I was a college dropout. You were in the military, but you also were doing college courses, so you were semi in there. But, who was going to come with 2 individuals that weren't going the traditional route? Who was going to drop everything in their entire life to come work for us? And we weren't making money because we were essentially just in a college together. We were just being self-taught. Who was going to do that? But I believed in it. And I pitched you it.
And I was not an easy person to talk to back then because
I probably was the only person that could actually talk to you about like certain
real stuff. Because one of the things that I went through before that, like very recently, and also because I was very fast and intelligent with my mind and my words. So like I was able to justify why anything was wrong. Which is not good at all. It's a very dangerous and bad skill set that only destroys yourself.
If you're closed-minded about it. And I think prior to us coming together, you had all of that intelligence with the closed-minded perspective.
Yes.
So you weren't able to listen to an ulterior, alternative perspective.
Yeah.
And, that's an important thing to do. But you keep that intelligence because you still have that mindset today.
Right.
But be able to listen to another perspective, and that's what you do so well now.
And that's what I had to. But luckily, because you're like one of those people where if you were brought into the middle of like a shootout or like a whole bunch of cowboys trying to kill each other, everyone would kind of just, like, or if they threw you in like Iran with a whole bunch of people who were just like AK-47s at each other or something like that, everyone would kind of just lighten up when you talked.
Maybe.
Like you're like, hey, I'm Jaden. What's up? and everyone would be like, Jaden? What's up? What's up, man?
Who's this kid? Why is he here?
Why
is he smart? What did he just dance?
and I just couldn't really get mad, or I couldn't be. You know what I'm saying?
Me challenging you because I didn't come with like a kind of aggressive or ignorant approach. I never wanted to do that with you. I always brought this very lighthearted tone of voice, energy, even though I was challenging your ideologies. But I was just able to take your guard down because I think you were so used to just people fighting you about stuff.
Right.
You were a rebel.
Right.
So when you're a rebel, you're fighting against the powers that be.
Right.
Fighting against the powers that be. Because most people don't like hearing that they're wrong. So
but then I understood.
I knew we needed more people, man.
Yeah.
Because I knew that one thing that we also had to do as leaders of a company is we had to lead.
Right.
So how do we lead if there's no one around? That was like kind of a macro perspective that I was able to attain.
Well, I watched a video the other day, and this dude reminded me of myself. Someone asked the guy, "Well, how come you're not scaling your business?" And the guy was like, "Well, I'm profiting about $400,000 a year right now, but no one could do anything as good as me." So I'm not going to bring them in. They can't do my job as good as me. And that used to be me. I used to think I could do it all. But what one of my mentors taught me, and we'll talk about that a little down the road, but the way that he's done everything, because he's built a multi-million-dollar business, is the thing is you're never going to be able to find someone that does 100% of what you could do the way you could do it. That's not real, especially when you're an extremely high performer. But to scale a business, you find someone and you teach them to be 80% of you. And if you have 10 people that are 80% of you, what do you have? You have 800% of yourself.
Yeah.
And if you teach them properly how to, like, you duplicate, right? So you do it, they watch. They do it, you watch. Then you watch until they could do it 80% as good as you can.
Yeah.
How many people can you do that with? That's how you scale a business, right? And that's essentially what you were already thinking. I was opposed to it, but we did it anyways.
Yeah, and that was the operational perspective on why we should do it, and then kind of bring my like delusionally optimistic, visionary mindset that I've always kind of had. Also, the aspect when you bring other people in and they become not the top or the leaders of a company, but they become leaders inside of a corporation or inside of a company.
Right.
You add their kind of idiosyncratic element of them because everyone has this individuality about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's just something special that I brought to the table that you weren't born with. There's something that you brought to the table that you weren't born with. And then I don't want to mention any names right now or drop them, but we're going to tell the story of all these people that walked through and are now still a part of this team together. Yeah. But they also, as well as being, individuals that were loyal and that listened and that, followed and that were, just so open to being led and learn. They brought their own really special elements
for
into
a year
the
and a
business.
half. We ran a college of principals.
Yeah,
that was the course.
That's true.
That was the course. We ran.
And again, when he says that, this wasn't. We didn't pay. We didn't get money. No one paid. No. They came in out of pure loyalty, sheer loyalty, and we had loyalty to them as well. And,
right.
It's obviously time told that because
Right.
they're still here.
Yeah, exactly. And so, long story short, people were like, well, what were y'all doing this whole time? That's essentially what we were doing. Like, we were building business plans, and we had some things going on where we were raising capital for different projects. People had us in on different projects.
Me and you only were thrown into business consultation in a way right off the bat. Not right off the bat, but as we continued to progress, we were actually given opportunities
to raise capital.
We weren't paid for those opportunities, but it was something to actually utilize all of this economic knowledge that we had learned. We were actually able in certain scenarios to actually get on the field and like try it out a little bit. Like, we weren't star players, but we were making blocks. We were, shooting a free throw. You know what I mean? So we started to actually feel what business was like. Once we turned 21, I think we actually started doing real stuff.
And it was stressful and it was hard, but but that's where we thought the money was going to come from to fund our ideas. So
Definitely.
we were raising capital. We invested into things.
Mm-hmm.
We helped build different businesses. And we learned our lessons throughout a lot of it. Some people screwed us over. Some people took what we deserved. Some people put us in a bind. But we can only thank people for that now. We learned the amount that we learned about business and about adversity. I mean, we were in plans to make this amount of money, this few $100,000, and you raise this much capital, and we were only always screwed over because we were young kids who were eager to become successful.
Just get in the field.
That is a very vulnerable group of people, or like a very manipulative group of young kids, and we were just down to roll.
For the viewers that have been following us, just as friends or as just people that have been excited to see what we do. When we're saying that, we're not talking about the public ventures that we've posted about years prior.
Yeah,
so
no.
Like
these were all private things.
The public ventures that we talked about, these are amazing experiences. This is how we made a name for ourselves in the city of Pittsburgh and inside of the United States. We built people outside of PA and Ohio.
Yeah, these were private dealings.
So this was before the investment fund. This was before we consulted for a green energy company, and we'll talk about that later. But we actually had the opportunity at 22. We'll get there. To actually be co-founders
of a real business,
of a company, of investment funds and all that good stuff. But there took some time, and now we're diving into that.
And so a lot of the people we have with us now, this is also important to note.
Of course.
I mean, every one of us rebelled against our parents and family. I turned down a massive job opportunity. A couple other people turned down job opportunities, left college, and we went and lived in an abandoned house. And worked out of a church pretty much.
Because I want to talk about all the boys, just so they get a good feel. But yes, this was where Pop's house, after all the team came together, what came right after that was abandoned house and a free consultation gig that only me and you did.
Yeah,
that's how loyal they were. They weren't even given responsibilities. They came out of blind faith just to be together.
The guys that are with us.
We were consulting for someone, and they didn't pay us. They just basically gave us an opportunity to work at an office,
right,
and to live at a house that he was flipping in the summertime.
Yeah,
which he's also not one of the individuals that we consider
ever have
done anything bad to us.
Yeah.
God bless that man. He's an amazing individual, and he's a successful businessman. And he was probably our first real mentor. That actually taught us real principles and practical tactics that we started to use in real time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But before we talk about, which is probably it's kind of like legend within the mob crew and with the Renaissance team, like the time that we got to be at the cathedral and we got to be at, sleeping on air mattresses in a half abandoned house, kind of
working out of like Barnes and Nobles.
We'll talk about it all because it's like that is such a special time to me, and that's probably like the foundation of what got us here.
The crazy thing is, that's the moment when I believed in myself, because while everyone else didn't really ever have anything that they were really like in society's perspective of doing something real, I was probably the closest, because I had a full-time position at the military base in Pittsburgh for like cybersecurity kind of stuff that I was going to go try to be a civilian for. Like everyone else was like, okay, drop out of college or do this or do that. But I had these opportunities that it's like that parent it's like you need to be a doctor,
Yes.
kind of thing.
Yes.
You know, and I was really stuck in the middle of
Between
that.
a rock and a hard place with
Yeah.
what you should do. Yeah.
Exactly, but I always knew that I mean, I always fucking knew.
Yeah.
But
What you're
when
saying
you're
is
young,
you got a promotion at this period of time, right when we got to this first office space,
right.
and we had a place to stay in the city of Pittsburgh, and that's right when you had a promotion offered to you.
And
Right
an
when it got
outside
real,
job,
right?
outside job when it got real for
When
us.
it got real.
And it was a lot of like for a 20-year-old, 21-year-old kid to get offered $100,000 job.
Yeah.
Like that's good.
It would have been like a whole mill up.
That
it would have felt
yeah,
like
that's
Yes.
it's a lot. And
Yes.
especially for never going to college or anything like that.
For sure.
Or never getting a degree.
Yes.
So but that's when I knew that I believed in myself.
Yeah.
Because I walked into that meeting and I said, "Sorry, I gotta go live at a half abandoned house with
And
my
go
friends
work at our
and
first
sleep on an air
office
mattress."
space. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like that's when I knew I believed in myself.
Yeah.
And
Dude, that's when you say it like that, man. Like it had become so normalized to us to make those type of decisions and to buy into the vision and to buy into each other. But like looking back
bro,
at
we
it,
had
I would have been
meetings.
shocked if you would have left. So I thought it was just so normal. I like brushed it off.
Right.
But like looking back at it, it's almost obscene that you were able to just just seamlessly say no to that and
Right.
just come right into what we were doing for the next 5 months.
And dog, it's crazy because we literally had meetings. People are like, "How do you guys know all this and make the decisions you make and view things the way you do?" We had meetings 3 times a week on a specific principle of life.
Yeah.
We used to sit like on a Wednesday, it would be like, "Okay, guys, today we're talking about belief." Or today we're talking about integrity. And everyone would have to have pages full of notes and their perspectives on that virtue, that characteristic.
Everyone take notes on mastery. Everyone take notes on Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Right.
Let's break these things down. Then we started diving into economics. Once everyone had their virtues kind of cemented, and we had
Yep.
the 10 Commandments of our group. Once those were cemented, then we started because we were learning philosophy and economics simultaneously together.
Right.
But in order to kind of teach that to the team that came with us, we had to start piece by piece. So we
Right.
started with virtues, and then we started to teach macroeconomics.
And we never made $1 for 3-4 years.
No, we didn't.
We just
No, we didn't.
I mean, really, we just lost a ton of money and
You
got
lost a lot
finessed.
you lost a lot of money because
Got
I didn't have
finessed.
any money. I didn't have no money.
And we
dog.
just kept getting finessed.
And but like again, I want to now retract before we'll say one more thing on this because we're actually going to talk about this in depth. We're not going to talk about it like we're like brushing over it right now. This is very important stuff. We'll talk about the formation of this team and of this unit. But yeah, like I just want to say it one more time, double down on it. It's really crazy, bro. Because again, I was all the way in. Like I was the one to first formulate this vision, so it makes sense. But also, like I had no foundation to stand on. I had to do this, and I think you kind of always admire that in a way.
Yeah.
But I'm here to tell you, I admire because I think it's just as fantastic, if not more fantastic, to have an opportunity where you can take 6 figures and go
to
this
not do it.
professional route and so eventually be an officer in the
Right.
military and not do it rather
Yeah.
than just like never even go down a path. Because
Well,
I
it's
was
like
a
the
smart kid. I
it's like
coulda
the
went to-
question.
I did go to college.
It's
I
like the
dropped out.
question that
Yeah.
Sasuke asked Naruto. He said,
Mhm.
because he's like, would you rather have experienced love and lost it, or never have it at all? Like Naruto
True.
never had it at all. Sasuke had it, then
Yeah.
got it ripped away from him.
Yeah.
So it's like you never had the decision, you never had the chance, so you didn't even have to really deal with it.
Yeah.
I had it and lost it, but both of those are both of those come with their equal pros and cons.
Yeah.
One's not better than the other. One's not more honorable than the other.
They're both
know what I
pretty,
mean?
They're both extraordinary looking back in it. I think
Right.
we can definitely we'll always pat ourselves in the back.
But we knew that neither one of us would ever quit or ever leave. It didn't
that's
like
true. Equally
you know what I'm
so,
saying?
it was the same. And again, like I was a smart kid. I want to mention this one time before we talk about the team in general. There was a narrative that kind of went around the Pittsburgh area. People, it wasn't an actual narrative, but there were just people that probably just didn't like us that I would hear whispers of. And there was this narrative that we were like advising people, the people that came onto the team, if they're in college to leave.
Right.
And that is just, it's just not true at all. Because I always say this, and this will be the first time I ever say it on a podcast. If I knew what we wanted to do at 16 years old, because we knew each other kind of when we were 16 years old.
Right.
We would have built this when we were in high school. We would have both got into CMU. Like, meaning it's not easy to get into CMU, but we would have done everything in our power
to get in
from 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, just like we did to get to where we're at now, to get into a Carnegie Mellon, to get into a Pitt, which one of the team members was a Pitt, and he still is at Pitt as a computer programmer. But, that was never anything that happened. This was just, it happened to be that, coincidentally, probably because of God, nothing's a coincidence, individuals that kind of manifested towards us, they were in a similar mental place as us.
Right.
And they were also kind of on the verge of leaving already.
Right.
And we had already left, and you weren't in it. You had a job, and you were taking courses though. Like, so you were balancing. And I only say that to say, like, you were balancing a lot of stuff, bro.
Yeah.
Like, your mind works differently than other people, bro.
Yeah.
For real. But we all had the same mindset, and that's why we all clicked together. We never had to like jam this down our team's throat.
No,
they were already very open to it, and then they just heard us talk, and they're like, we're literally going to be with you forever.
And this whole process that we're talking about, to kind of put it into context, this was us realizing, like, okay, it's time to take a step back from the venture capital, and then we formulated the plan of how we were going to do it. And then once we had everything mapped out, then it was like, boom, time to go. So we worked our way backwards as we went from place to place to place, experience to experience to experience, failure to failure to failure, if that's what other people will call it.
Yeah.
I just think it was us mapping everything out and gaining valuable wisdom and experience. Yeah. But then we got to the point where we were like, okay, well, it's time to go. Let's start consulting for small startup companies, and we started making valuable connections, and we did that. So that brings us into around last year, about a year and a half ago, when we moved to Pittsburgh. It was me, you, and like 3 or 4 others. These were people who were going to be with us, and then there were other people in Pittsburgh that came over every day, that also worked with us, that stayed loyal in the midst of all of the chaos, in the midst of everything collapsing. And what are we gonna do? We're leaving. We're going here. We're pivoting, and this is what we're gonna do now. A couple people left for their own reasons, and majority of everyone stayed.
Yeah.
And we have everyone with us to this day, that is with us still.
Yeah. That was
and everything that we're doing. Yeah. Right. So now we end up in Pittsburgh, and we build a legitimate LLC, and we start consulting for small startups. Now, the difference is these aren't companies where your local mom and pop shop or an already established business.
No, they weren't. Which
we were
people
very
would have
niche.
Expected us to get
right.
That route.
We wanted, our goal was venture capital.
Yeah.
The end goal was venture capital. So to build our way up, we wanted to consult for startup companies
in innovative industries.
Companies that are very small but have massive potential for exponential growth to the billions and trillions of dollars in market cap. That's what venture capital is, right? The person who invests into Instagram at the beginning, or Airbnb, companies that could have multi-billion trillion dollar valuations. Absolutely. Right? So like that's what we aimed at. So we got a couple connections to CMU. We got a couple connections to startup founders.
Shout out to the military, dude.
Shout out to the military, right? Yeah, that's why. And everything works out, and so we started doing some consulting work
with legitimate players.
With legitimate players, which led us into last year Cloudfire Capital.
Well, so the Cloudfire Capital was originally us consulting. We were going on the wave of getting into innovative industries and just doing 1 or 2 niche things that we knew how to do that an adult wouldn't know how to do. Like for anyone that wants to, go down this entrepreneurial path, in the very beginning stage, first you have to learn what you're actually doing.
Right.
And then you have to get to the place where you know one thing so well, one thing that could be a pillar of an industry, that could be a pillar of a corporation, of an LLC. Then you have to be able to pitch yourself on that one thing or 2 things. And ours was digital strategies.
Right.
That's very vague, but we'll get into it more as we continue to go. But we had digital strategies.
And I don't want to say, and I don't want to bring up names just for legal purposes. of other companies, but there were a few other startup companies that we did some consulting for as well while we were doing Cloudfire Capital.
Yeah.
Right. We were helping them with the same things.
Yeah.
I don't know. In all honesty,
We just won't talk about we're not with Cloudfire anymore. We don't want to talk about the potential connections that they still have. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Or other companies, because to be honest, we're so busy now that I haven't even kept up with where other companies are at currently.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone that we worked with they were great people, great founders. We learned so much from everyone. And we brought the little amount of value and knowledge and wisdom to those companies that we had.
Yes.
We went in and we went out like we were supposed to.
Yeah, we're still able to execute, and we'll talk about where we're at today, obviously, because a lot of people know a part of it, but they don't know the other part of it. We're still able to do consulting and more so freelance advising, hands-on consulting today with companies in the Pittsburgh region and around the United States because of the people that we met in the business ecosystem of Pittsburgh during the Cloudfire Capital time. I was the head of communications. That was my role at Cloudfire. So I got us in and you got us into basically every legitimate business networking group in the Pittsburgh region during that period of time to educate the business world on cryptocurrency and investing and whatnot. And we held a lot of amazing relationships at that time that are still so loyal to us and that we're still doing business with today. Obviously, that's not your role right now, but I've told you the amount of people that I still meet with to this day representing Renaissance Z.
Well, and so that gets us in to talking about what it is going to be, right? Yeah. So right now we like a part of it, we run an insurance agency. And you, Dean, everyone else, we're planning out the creative / entrepreneurial studio, Renaissance Z University, the startup consulting that you're doing right now, which is going to level up into the venture capital firm.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna have asset management businesses, which what I'm doing right now is going to kind of find its way into investment management companies, venture capital firms, private equity firms, creative and entrepreneurial studios, Renaissance Z University, things that accelerator programs, incubator programs, things that are going to be explained and done with our group of founders that we have
in real time,
right? Because right now we're all doing our own thing, but it's under one main holding company, which is Renaissance Z.
Yes.
Right? Renaissance Z is the holding company. We have what you're doing. We have what Dean is going to be doing. We have what I'm going to be doing.
Yep.
And then everyone else that we bring in, what they're going to be doing as well, because we're talking about trillions of dollars worth of assets under management, worth of business valuations,
socioeconomic shifts, complete shifts that are at the verge of happening as we speak. And we've been able to directly be involved in two of the main industries that are the pillars of the future: green energy and blockchain / cryptocurrency. Yeah. So this is a very real thing. Like, this isn't some kind of overview macro conversation that we're having because it sounds good. It's like, we've already done this. This is already happening in real time, and there's companies that are still interested in blockchain advising, and still there's health and wellness and green energy that still are in communications with us to do things moving forward. Yeah, because of our niches that we've been able to find.
Those are two industries out of
so
30 or 40.
So many. I love those two because they're so big. We're talking about potentially the online existence with metaverse and all the things that entail, economic and like existence, and then green energy, making sure that the earth is intact.
But like at the end of the day, those are the two things that are big that are going on. But life spirals, life evolves, and the thing is, we never were like, we're gonna do crypto and this, or or the transportation industry and the fashion industry.
Yeah,
we learned everything at the fundamental level, and we're going to have people who can get into the specifics of each industry.
Of course.
Our job really isn't going to be to work in specific industries. No. Our job is to lay the fundamental layers of the businesses and then hire specialists in each industry. So
our job is to work with the individuals who are actually doing these things.
Right.
The visions that we believe in.
Right.
The people and the teams that almost mirror the team that we built ourselves. Like there has to be some kind of symbiotic relationship between that thing.
Well, because at the end of the day, we've built a business, whether it be the insurance industry that's bringing in, $200,000 plus in business or in sales a month after its 6-month, mark in existence, right? The startup consulting, how many businesses, how many founders that we've worked with to help scale their businesses.
And that hasn't really even started yet,
even
man.
really
And
started.
like where it's going to be at in a year, man. I'm excited.
But here's the thing. The main thing that we've built is a culture. Here's the thing. A culture rules everything. The way that I always explain it to people, everyone looks at the numbers first and then the culture second. They look at the numbers and the results and the data first and the culture second. What we did is we looked at the culture first. And no matter how long it was going to take, and it still does take, all efforts are directed towards the culture. Because if you do that and you build on a solid foundation and everyone has our principles instilled in them at the extremity that we've instilled them, it's almost like venom,
He's a dark dude.
It's
I wouldn't call it venom, but he would. Yeah,
but
no,
not venom itself.
It spreads.
But the characteristics of whatever
it becomes intertwined in your DNA seamlessly.
Right.
And it has. I mean, it actually really is. That's a good comparison. I'm visualizing right now.
Yeah.
How about white venom though? Like
right. Yeah. White. Like God. Like God.
Like God.
Jesus venom.
But no. It's so true. That's what it is.
We're upstairs right now in this podcast studio.
Yeah.
But you go look down there. There's an office full of the people that could have left us for 3 years making no money.
No short-term gain.
No attention, no material desire or pleasure or any gratification that could have satisfied them. They got none of it.
Just
they had
vision.
Many opportunities to leave us when everything came crashing down, when it looked like we were not going to succeed, when it looked like I lost everything because someone did something to us or because we made a bad decision ourselves, because everything was always our fault.
We always took responsibility.
Everything was always our fault.
Absolutely.
Even if something was done to us, we made the decision to carry on with that individual and get burned or whatever it may be, or put our money in the wrong places.
Yeah.
But it was our fault. But they didn't leave. No one left. And loyalty is defined as, the way that I define loyalty, me and you been through some fucking shit together. You know, like I could have left you and you could have left me. And loyalty is when you could benefit off of betraying me more than you can off of being with me.
And those times definitely came for all of us.
And it never mattered.
We'll talk about me and you, like, no question.
Yeah.
No
question. But so, like, that's where we're at now, and we have the vision, we have the purpose. It's all still intact. Now we're at the point where, how do we contain massive growth and preserve culture?
Yes.
That's the scariest part.
It is, because we're actually seeing the fruits at this point in time. Like, we're actually seeing these things occur. I mean, we had real opportunities a year ago. We were doing real things. We were meeting real people, but now it's actually manifested and developed into the place where, like, we have the ability to buy things. We have the ability to go do things and go places.
Yeah, spend a lot of money.
Is the mentality still the same? Because the truth is, the world hasn't even been introduced to us yet. This is basically for 10 years down the road, this podcast, and then just for the people that have really came in at the beginning and taken notice with us, which we appreciate greatly.
And a lot of people, and I think that's important to talk about too, because to the average individual, we have achieved material success. And I'll be honest, I think it's worthless. I think money is a tool. I think money is going, like, I think money, to make big change, to make a lot of change, you got to go get the fucking money, as Chamath would say.
Of course.
You know, you have to get the billions.
We've been a part of capital raises, and
you have to get the trillions.
Yeah.
But it means nothing from a material perspective, or from an enjoyment perspective, or from a fulfillment perspective, because, you know, we are at that point now where, you know, the success is at the level of the most successful parents in the city that we came from. The amount of profit that our businesses bring in right now, and it's completely worthless. There's no value.
Hit, you know, it's going to hit, for the insurance agency specifically, it's going to hit 7-8 figures without even much growth at this point. Just with the trajectory that it's going right now. Is that enough for you?
Yeah, right.
This goes back to the power of this reverse engineering that we've done. We've started at a vision that exceeds anything that we had ever seen physically in our entire lives at the very beginning stage.
Mm-hmm.
We shot for the stars and aimed for the moon right off the bat.
Yeah.
So how could we ever break that? Because of the fact that even when things weren't coming for us, even when we weren't getting, you know, short-term success, our team, who we're gonna, don't worry, boys, we're gonna talk about you at the very end. It's gonna be all about the team. It's gonna be all about the culture in depth. But because they didn't leave when we had nothing, how could we forget the vision when we start to just get a little bit? It would be really spitting in their face at the end of the day. And they're living life fine too. Like, they're also getting material success. They're seeing it as well. But we held true to a bigger concept. We held true to a bigger vision right off the bat.
Yeah.
And if we ever sway from that, man, our 19, 20-year-old selves, bro,
gonna hate us.
mean, they'll come back to us. They'll come back to us in our dreams, dude. They'll come back to us in the daytime. I'll hear my old voice. I'll hear your voice.
Well, bro,
in
and
Bessemer,
if
Pennsylvania,
we didn't still all have one another,
yes,
it would happen individually.
Mm-hmm.
We would individually fall off of that. That's why our
agree.
culture is so special, because
we are who we are because of this vision.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, if a paradox will ensue, if we even just falter a little bit, we'll subconsciously collapse. And that's deep, but like that's who we are. It's it's the subconscious makeup that allows us to sit here and have this conversation.
Yeah.
It's become ingrained in our DNA and in our personality.
Yeah.
If we alter from it.
Well, it's because it's like I said, you know, before, the real prize trophy is the process that we go through. That's the real prize. That's the real trophy. The journey that we go through, right? Because even right now, every level of life is going to bring different demons. Right now, it could be imposter syndrome. Right now, it could be dealing with temptation of the money that's being brought in, or the attention that we have the capability to attract, or the power that we have a lot of people on our side, the influence, right? That is temptation. That brings anxiety. That brings an uncontrollable curiosity of what's possible. And right now, that is the stage we're at. Right now, it's important to realize that we're at a stage where everything can collapse if we stop doing what we've always done to get to where we're at.
Yes.
That's what's scary. And it wouldn't be scary if we weren't who we were, because we would have already fell in to all of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like God, the way that I look at it, God directs us to find our genius. Right? I think everyone has, you know, like for Renaissance Z, we say design to build. One of the other ones I've been thinking is find your genius. And me and you have also found faith at the same time of our lives in totally different areas.
Yeah.
You know, when the hardest thing I think we've ever done so far is you go run startup consulting, I go build this business.
Yeah, because we weren't even sure how it was going to properly connect all to Renaissance Z until literally a few months ago.
few months
where it's
ago.
like, dude, this is all the same.
Yeah,
Like,
it's all the same.
like I was just a singular freelancer, and we're just like, bro, why would we do that?
Yeah.
For one, so we held true to the vision in that circumstance,
Right.
And then you add in the spiritual element of it, and now we're all united in
me
a
and
deeper
you
way.
weren't. Me and you hustled on two parts of the business separately so hard that we almost didn't even communicate
Yeah,
as much for that time.
yeah,
But simultaneously, somehow, without even telling one another,
yeah.
we were both.
We had that moment in the car.
We were both seeking God for the first time. And when I say God, anyone could have their kind of God. It could be the universe for you. It could be Buddha. It could be, the Judeo-Christian version. It could be Jesus, whatever it is. But a higher power, and ours was, what we found, God himself and Jesus and faith through totally different perspectives or channels of life. But then we came back together.
And we were still, because you made that statement in the beginning, we really never went longer than like a couple days seeing each other.
Yeah.
We were still seeing each other, but it wasn't with the same intensity professionally because you were scaling the life insurance agency. So when we saw each other, I really wanted to just be there for you personally because I knew what you guys were doing. You were keeping me updated on everything. I was advising in any way that I possibly could, adding my element to it. But, you guys were doing it. You were in the trenches. You were building this out. You were there for 14, 15 hours a day.
Yeah.
And you still are.
Yeah.
So that was the one weird time where it was a little bit different. Our lives weren't consistently intertwined together
like
from
they've
a professional
always been.
and personal way. Because our life has always been professional and personal at the same exact time, together all the time.
Yep.
But God, Jesus, was the one that brought us back. I keep using the word seamlessly because it really was. It was so natural, so habitual, and it just felt so right. It woke us up to everything that has been implanted, everything that we've created, all the blueprints that we created. They're literally happening.
Right.
Like they're happening in real time.
Legitimately.
And we remember the moment when we had that, revelation. People were crying. People were just mind blown because it was all playing out as it was written.
Right.
And it is consistently. And if we didn't become conscious of it, which we finally did, it could have actually swayed.
And this is why, and like just to finish, because I don't want to halfway start something, but that perfectly goes into what I was saying, like the find your genius thing.
Yes.
God, we have, it's the way that we view things. So the way I view it, God or the universe or whatever you think, the reason he makes us suffer is because he needs us to find our individual purpose as to why we exist on earth. And the suffering forces us towards it and guides us and narrows us in towards it. Because when you endure suffering, the only thing you could do is find out the truth of life and the truth of your life. In that, you find your individual purpose of existence because only you have it.
Yes.
God designed you as an individual. There's no two humans that are the same, even if they're similar.
It's the
Our
main
makeup
proof of
is
God
too
in my
complex.
mind.
And so,
thing.
but what God does it through are all of these feelings that society has put a definition around. They've defined depression. They've defined anxiety. They've defined confusion. They've defined tragedy and loss, right? They've defined all these things, but really, all that is, let's take the definitions and the words and throw them away. That's just God's way of getting us to finally find our individual purpose for existence, our meaning, our calling, our inclination, what we're actually supposed to do. And you have two options of life: to find God and to find your genius.
I like how you said that, yeah.
Right? Or to run away and escape the pain and suffering.
Get closer to eternity in destruction.
With evil.
And evil,
with evil, right? So it's like, that is what we're doing. That's what we're doing, and that's what we've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that's why we've always said, there's a lot of founders out there. There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that a lot of the venture capitalists and the successful business individuals, they don't look at them. They don't view them because they didn't go to Princeton. They didn't go to Harvard. They didn't go to Stanford. They didn't have a father who was a professional founder.
There it is.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And give these people a chance
Yeah.
to innovate,
Yes.
to push forward, and then there's the creatives who don't understand how to scale a business.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So you have all of these areas of life that are vulnerable, that don't have the necessary one more thing
Resources,
to make them successful.
advice, infrastructure. So to double down on that amazing point, regardless of your age, race, background, family name, industry that
Environment.
you are involved in and passionate
Resources.
about, we want to bring in and create an ecosystem, a business ecosystem that we invest into,
Yeah.
that we accelerate, that are from all walks of life,
Yeah.
and put them into an incubator together
Yeah.
and create something that's never been done in modern economics.
Right.
Because when we see accelerator programs, when we see venture capital firms invest into a wide array of companies and
yeah,
industries.
yeah.
But let's just be real. There's a certain aesthetic. There's
Yeah.
a certain
Right.
there's a certain type of person. There's a certain bubble. There's a certain few colleges that the majority of venture capital firms are looking solely at.
Yeah.
And they're not investing into fashion designers, right? They're not investing into artists
Right.
from all different types of art.
Pop
and
there's
creativity.
and pop culture runs the world.
I knew you had throwing it.
So
Sir.
to combine traditional elite level business infrastructure with pop culture demographic, that's what we're doing. And here's the most important part. And then after this, let's talk about the team, because I think we've been long enough.
Yes.
But what was I gonna say?
You were just basically saying that.
Oh, yeah.
Combining
Yeah.
pop culture with
So,
business, which
but
is
the-
influence.
And here's what I wanted to add in. The virtue and the principles and the culture and the loyalty, all of those kind of things, that's not just some watered down fucking marketing plan or business growth tactic, right? You have your individuals where the root is greed and it's disguised in virtue. This whole thing was built upon not giving a shit about money, only virtue. That is the root. That is the root. The true prize is the character you build. It's the journey, it's the process. The material, the money, all that is a tool for massive influence in a positive direction
Yes.
for mankind.
Yes.
So we could provide the next generation a better world than what we have, the same way that the heroes of the past did for us.
And not a world full of technological innovation, because that's already happening regardless of me and you. The innovation's occurring as we speak.
Right.
But doing something spiritual, philosophical,
Right.
to that technological
Right.
innovation, that's our purpose to be here in this world.
Yeah.
Period, point blank. Because the innovation's happening. We were born in the innovation. We are riding a wave, an ocean front that's not stopping. But what we're doing is we're trying to alter the current. We're trying to gain perspective on why the water is going in the way that it is.
Yeah.
We're trying to educate and have conversations that most people up to this point have not had yet. Period, point blank. It's just not even a discussion. People don't want to talk about it. And this still is a very macro discussion that me and you are having.
Right.
Because guess what? This is just the beginning of the podcast, baby. Like, we have a long time and a lot of things to get very specific on.
Yeah.
But this is about the story of Renaissance Z.
You know what time it is?
What time is it?
No, I'm asking you.
We got dinner with some
What time is it?
amazing
Wait, what time is
artists. 7:26.
Okay, we got to leave very soon.
Okay.
So let's wrap this up in the next 10
Yes,
minutes.
yeah.
All right, so you said that's Renaissance Z.
That's
So
Renaissance Z.
So now we can talk about the team. So we're at the end. I think we could talk about this team, this mafia, as I like to call it, the organizational. Like I always say, if the mafia wouldn't have been doing illegal shit, they would have taken over the fucking country.
Yeah.
They were getting people elected as president. They were in control over the unions.
They did take over the country for a certain period of time.
For a certain period of time. If there was if they didn't do anything illegal, the way that organization was structured, meaning the principles, virtues, characteristics of the organization, and then the extremities that they went to protect those principles, you don't lose.
No.
You don't lose. So that's how we seek to build our team.
Yes.
Right, except we don't do anything illegal. But
yeah, mob. The definition of the word mob has nothing to do with illicit activities, and that's where the ideology that we grabbed when we referred to ourselves as the mob crew. Like,
right,
mob is it stands for revolution. It's a revolution with individuals causing the revolution. That's what mob stands for.
So me and you, Nick brought us together. Nick Patton.
Yes, we did.
And here's the thing to note as we go through this: the people who played a part will always be a part, even if life takes them away for 7 years. As long as they never did anything disloyal, they will always be heavily rewarded as we gain massive influence over the whole entire globe, essentially.
That's one way of saying it.
And they'll all be a part of it because that's what's real.
But the most beautiful thing is the main core, the original mob crew that we're going to discuss today. We are all the actual mob crew, like branded and everything.
Mm-hmm.
We are all together today.
Right now.
Every single one
me,
of us.
you,
how
Nick,
special.
Dean, all the way over in LA.
Yeah, he's an example of someone that moved,
mm-hmm.
but was still staying in communications with us, and then has now really came back to the forefront in a radical way recently.
Right. So Dean, doing everything he's down there doing in LA.
But then the youngins who came in, we gotta tell them in chronological order. Do you remember the order?
Yeah. So
let's do it.
Evan
Pinkerton, top leader at the life insurance agency at this point.
One of them, yeah.
Massive influence.
Right.
Yeah. Every single person in here that works at the life
is
insurance agency is top
leader. Yeah. So Evan, and then also gonna end up being creative director over a lot of people, or maybe not.
Whatever he decides that he wants to do, but he's leading large amounts of groups right now.
Yeah. So you have that. Is Dimitri Pendro second?
Mm-mm.
Michael Piniella,
who's
second
downstairs
grade.
As we speak right now.
Second grade. I remember growing up, my mom always told me, you're going to outgrow your friends. Everyone's going to disperse. I remember everyone else used to tell us the same thing. Teachers, older people at the military, college professors, you and all your friends are going to end up splitting up. Michael Piniella, second grade, still with me, still building. Knew that kid since the second grade, never broke his fucking loyalty through everything.
Yes, sir.
Still together, 23 years old, going to work together forever.
And then before we get into Dimitri, right before Dimitri Pendro came into this, Evan Pinkerton brought a young, dark-skinned stud, Jeremiah Booker, who has now become one of the fastest-growing website developers
in
the city of Pittsburgh. And that's no joke. Just go to one networking group in Pittsburgh. If he's not there, ask about him. If he's there, you'll see it. He's doing big things. He's just signed equity for a cybersecurity firm, and he has over 10 clients that are legitimate. And we couldn't be more proud of him.
Still in college.
And he's about to be a Pitt graduate, and he's about to finish the Renaissance Z website, which will tell a little bit more and keep us a little bit more organized.
And then after that, then you have Dimitri.
Yes, sir.
I actually met Dimitri at a real estate gathering, and I didn't even know who he was. And then you brought him to the house.
We went to high school
after, and I was like, "Wait a minute, I just seen you."
We went to high school together. We played varsity football with each other. He was a little bro, and there was always that entrepreneurial spirit in him, and I caught that at a very young age. And then we came, because of fate, we came back together, and he comes to Pop's house.
And then
the last person, your favorite. And I'm saying that because we all love everyone equally.
We're talking about like the main people. Not okay. So Braden Cameron.
The reason why I said favorite is we all love each other equally, but Joey and Braden have such a interesting but incredible relationship that they've correlated.
Yeah.
He came in, he was just like Dimitri. He was little brother. He's actually was he was basically a part of my family. Basically, my parents adopted him, not literally, but definitely in a sense. He was over the house, best friends with all my siblings and myself.
I always knew, because like I always say to people, if someone ever tells me they hate someone, I'm like, well, then you gotta love them, because hate is the opposite of love. To hate someone, you gotta love them. It's an extreme emotion.
Yes.
Right. I fucking hated Braden for like a year and a half because I thought I thought he was disloyal.
Y'all
right.
Y'all were best buds. You were just always on edge because it had to be proven in time. And
right.
for you, everything has to be proven in time. You don't care about words itself.
Yeah.
So there was always friction, but there was still love always. And you really did open your arms to him right off the bat. It just really took time for your personalities to merge together and become family.
The thing is, Braden is one of the most loyal people I ever met. You know what I'm saying?
Well, because you decided that you were going to be the most radical on him. And he beat it. Yeah. That's why. Yeah. That's the beauty. Yeah. In turmoil. He was the most
coachable kid that I've ever met in my life. Like the kind of kid where I'm like, you are done. Get the fuck out. He's going to be like, no, I'm not leaving your hip for the rest of my life. And I'm going to stick around and I'm going to follow you forever.
From a practical sense, he is leading the largest amount of kids and young individuals downstairs right now.
He was the most coachable.
And he bought a Tesla.
and neither of us gave up on one another as both a coach and a student. Yes. There were many times where I wanted to give up, but it's not in my nature to give up. It doesn't matter. It don't matter if I fucking it does anything. I can't give up on things. Yes. You know what I mean?
And at the end of this video, we're gonna find an old video of us in Bessemer, Pennsylvania, at Pop's house, of some of the first team meetings that we had. Some of them that we captured was
but everyone's solid as fuck, dog.
We first started
everyone's
educating.
Solid.
Oh yeah,
everyone's solid.
Yes.
Dimitri could have left. He left for a bit. Not left, but went to find himself for a very small amount of time, but never left. Evan came back. You know what I'm saying? Yep. Like, no one ever actually left, right? Yep. Everyone, Michael Pinella, Nick, Dean, everyone in spirit. This was a group thing. Life is about going on a journey and finding yourself. I always say, like, self-mastery is a simultaneous parallel thing to whatever you're doing in life. You can't master a skill set or an expertise or a profession without mastering yourself, but you can never say that, oh, I'm going to master myself and then I'll do all that. Self-mastery is an eternal thing. So you have to find self-mastery while you find everything else at the same time. Mm-hmm. Everyone has been going through that self-mastery process, but you have to pay attention to it. You have to intentionally do it, and everyone's been doing that without leaving this group.
And the most special thing about it was, to go off of your point, we did it together.
Yeah. There's about 25 to 35 other people
that are now
who are now in this over the past 6 months.
But the foundation of it is that original group in Bessemer, Pennsylvania, sitting around a round table in a living room. Right. Insert video at the end of the video. Because Jarrett, we definitely got to do it. And then, Jarrett, of course, my little brother Jarrett, who was there all the time as well. Right. He was just a young kid who was just sucking in knowledge. Yeah. And he is now, in many ways, he has his own special niche. He may be at the level of Dean when it comes to creativity as well. So he's gonna seamlessly transform right into what this main macro vision has in store.
And now, Pittsburgh is the first place where we're going to start building relationships, connections, start doing some startup consulting, giving our services out. We have a lot of creatives. We have a lot of powerful connections and a network that could be a very strong resource to people who want to build a business but don't know how to scale something, how to profit off of something, how to get the results and build off of it, right? And then we'll transform that into investing at a $1 trillion scale, and that'll go from Pittsburgh to the country, to the globe. And it's all built on the foundation of the oldest principles that have guided mankind to where we're at today, from barbarics to wars to raping and pillaging and to being animals as the human race, to having order and principles and morality and virtue and laws and innovation and technology. That's what we're going to build on, and we're just going to continue the cycle. So I think I'm done. You know, we're done. We're gonna have a lot more to say, a lot more people to talk to. But you know,
after all we just said, we're just at the beginning.
yeah, it's this,
we're just
this was
after
so
all
early,
that
dog.
history, 3.5 years worth of history that we did a pretty good job of shoving in this podcast. We're just at the beginning.
Yeah. And it's so fucking stressful, and it's only gonna get worse, and it's only gonna get harder, and we're only gonna fall more in love with it.
Oh man, I'm deep. I'm in deep forever for life, man.
Yeah.
My wife, my kids are gonna have to deal with it.
Right.
Let's get it, man.
Everyone that's done anything for us, we're never gonna leave those people.
No.
We're going to make everyone very successful in terms of spirit, physicality, emotionally, mentally, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to think. It's because people have done some real shit for us.
Oh my gosh.
You know, and
for as much betrayal, there's been probably 5 times more
as
love
much
and support.
love and support directly
Our
from
parents,
directly from
aunts
God,
and uncles, aunts
mentors,
and Uncle Paul, cousins, right?
friends. Yeah, direct, and it's all from God. So,
absolutely.
yeah, man.
We're
Thank
good.
y'all, and I love y'all.
We'll catch y'all next time.
Yes, sir.